Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 2. Season 2. Look at this. We're together. It's a special...
Two of us.
There's both of us here in the same screen.
Yeah.
Same audio, same screen. Season 2, Episode 20 of Clubfittingchronicles. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about single-length irons. Gene, we've seen Bryson DeChambeau use single-length irons. That's kind of been a controversial topic for a lot of golfers, and you don't really hear about it much, but today we're going to dive deep into that and talk more about it. But before we do any of that first, Gene, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
And it's good to be talking with you here in season number 2. Hi to my grandkids, Emma and Sammy. It's getting cold now in Arizona, so we get to wear jackets. It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 60 degrees, and we're not quite wearing gloves yet.
Sure.
But
anything under 70, we're bundling up. That's just how it is.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
So, and Las Colinas opens tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're...
Overseed season is almost done.
It is,
yeah.
And it's about time because this is the worst time of the year.
It is. In Arizona, overseed, I mean, it's hard to find golf courses because most of the time, the overseed schedule for everybody is the exact same. So it's, one course closes and every other course a couple days after that closes, and then there's just 2 weeks of absolutely no golf. Or you go to a night range on mats, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really like hitting off mats.
No. And the other thing is then it becomes cart path only, which doesn't bother me because I'm walking, carrying my bag down the fairway.
Sure.
But it's like 4 hours and 35 minutes, 4 hours and 40-minute rounds. And I'm like, how can it take you that long to play golf?
But it surprises me that it does take people that long, and they have a reason for it. But
they have an excuse for it.
Yeah,
I had to walk 40 yards both ways.
Yeah. My bum knee wouldn't allow me. Well, you walk to the pro shop just fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I did say that.
I did.
But yeah, other than that, overseed is done, and the golf courses are in great shape. And we've been golfing the last week. I have, at least. Gene has as well. And we played 2 weeks ago at Apache Creek.
I think it was. Yeah.
It was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I played 2 weeks ago at Apache Creek, and we talked about the next episode. This episode, as a matter of fact, and we're talking about single length irons. And in the past, we did the MOI weighting of my irons. Now, how is that related? And we've touched on why that is related to single length and why they're the same in that regard as feel. Shout out to Tom Washon. I've watched a few of his golf videos on MOI weighting and just getting a better understanding for myself. Gene has taught me a lot about it himself, but he puts it like this: a lot of the time when he fits, single length irons aren't really the first thing he goes to. It's more of finding what the person's MOI that they like and going from there. So we're going to dive deep into the single length irons and what is the hype behind single length irons, because myself, I don't really know. I just know that in relation to MOI, they're feel, and I'm a big feel player, so that's more up my alley as far as my style of golf. And so yeah, Gene, what is the hype around single length irons?
Well, the first thing people need to understand is single length irons have been around since the 90s, but there's always been an issue, and there still is kind of an issue with some of them. We used to get people 10 years ago come in and want me to make their set of single-length irons. You can't really do that because in order to have single-length irons, you have to have the same weight.
Right.
And if you don't know this, I will educate you. There's a 7-gram difference from one club to the next in irons. So let's say your 5-iron weighs 252 grams. Well, most single-weight irons are going to weigh 270 to 272, 73 grams.
Okay.
So that means you got to somehow get 23 grams of lead tape on that sucker.
And we both know that's a lot of tape.
That's a lot of tape.
A lot of tape.
Now, you could vary some of the weight, and we've showed you how to do that. But again, that's 10 grams, so I'm still short.
Yeah.
Well, let's say I want my 4-iron. My 4-iron, I need 7 more grams than I did with my 5-iron.
Right.
On the other hand, maybe my pitching wedge weighs in at 289. That's 17 grams too heavy.
Right.
I got to start either grinding off weight, and without changing the structural integrity, the bounce severely. 17 grams of weight is a lot of weight to grind off. Having done it many times with blank heads, 17 grams is a lot. So it becomes an issue if you're trying to make your own.
Right.
The second issue, and this dates back into the 90s, and the reason why it never really caught on at first, everybody was making single-length irons out of 431 steel, which means nothing to most people, but it's like a stainless steel. That's the best way to think of it. And stainless steel is just hard. Nice, hard surface. You like hard.
Right.
Especially if you're hitting golf balls. You don't want to hit it with cardboard.
Right.
Doesn't go anywhere. And it's not that the hardness is making it, but it was a cheap, inexpensive way to make them. It's a poured cast club. You can make it, get perimeter weighting and everything else. Mm-hmm. But when you shorten a club, let's say we want to make them all 7-iron, like 37 inches. Well, your 4-iron used to be 38 and a half inches.
Right.
Somehow I got to get the ball speed the same as it was when it was 1.5 inches longer. Well, part of ball speed is the length of the club.
Right.
About 15% of the overall difference between a 7-iron, say, and a 4-iron or 5-iron length is the length of the shaft. I swing that faster so the ball will go further. Mm. Well, if they're all the same length, I'm now swinging them all the same.
Right.
If I'm swinging them all the same, how do I make the ball go faster? Well, a couple of companies came up with this great idea. Let's make a 17-degree 4-iron. Okay, for those of you who are not loss savvy, most 3-woods are 15 to 16 degrees, and a 3-wood of 15 to 16 degree will launch a ball significantly higher than a 17-degree 4-iron.
Yeah.
So the problem became, I can't hit them.
Right.
In addition to that, when I go to the other end of the bag, it becomes a lofting issue.
Right.
Because if I started off at 17 degrees with the 4-iron,
now you got to change everything.
I got to get, my lofts become, I might be at 34 degrees with my 9-iron.
Yeah.
Well, my 52-degree wedge, the next longest club in my bag, is still 52 degrees.
Right.
And I need it to be 52 degrees because I want the ball to get up in the air.
Yeah.
I was talking with Doug. I told him I wouldn't use his name today, but Doug, I'm using your name. We were talking today. We're working on a set of irons, and he was telling me with his current set, he has a set of single-length clubs.
Okay.
And in those single-length clubs, he can beat people all day long if the golf course is designed between trees, because he can keep the ball under the tree branches.
I see.
With a 9-iron. Because his lofts are so strong. His loft on his 9-iron is 36 degrees.
Oh, wow.
To give you at home an idea, back in the mid-70s, when I was playing college golf in 1976, my 5-iron was 32 degrees.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like a 7-iron.
So it's like a 6-iron.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 6-iron that's short.
Right.
So I don't generate the speed. Ball goes low. How much spin do I put on it? The same amount of spin as I put on a 6-iron.
Right.
How often do you see 6-irons stopping on greens? Not too often.
Sure.
And so that became the other issue. So the original idea was let's just de-loft them. That didn't work. So fast forward, Bryson comes along.
Right.
Now Bryson has something that most people don't have. Swing speed.
Yes.
So he could get away with hitting lower lofted irons,
right,
and getting the ball a mile high.
Right.
Where you and I, well, you can. I can't. I don't have enough club head speed to get the ball high enough. My ball goes where Bryson's goes, keeps going and then drops.
Sure.
So his gets higher. It's going faster up that line, where us normal human beings, it's not going to reach that same apex.
Sure.
So we don't get the carry.
Right.
Well, come about 2000, let's see, 2013, 14, 15, and a little bit before that, Tom Wishon, there were a couple others, started playing around with changing irons, regular irons, not even single length, but just regular iron heads.
Yeah.
And creating iron heads that the ball comes off the face faster. Okay. So, like a driver, you've heard of trampoline effect.
Yes.
Okay. Same idea with an iron. So the ball would smush less when it hit the face, goes off the face faster. And Tom had come out with an iron that, excuse me for saying this, Tom, it was ugly. It was, for myself, I sold a number of them, but it had a really thick top line, but the ball just jumped off the face.
Right.
And people would gain, we would have them, at that time we had, what did we have? What was it called? A vector launch monitor. And it would give us ball speeds and stuff like that. It didn't give us the path of the shot, but we could figure out from the spin rates and stuff what was happening. And I had a guy he was the first one to want one, and we had a demo. And he was hitting his 6-iron, because that was the demo head number that we used. He was hitting his 6-iron, hitting it dead on center. And let's say his ball speed was 125. I'm just making up the number. I don't remember what it was. Same club head speed. With the Wishon head, his ball speed was 129.
Oh, okay.
Hitting it on center.
Right.
So he's getting 4 miles more an hour. He's getting about 9 yards further with that club. Well, fast forward a few years from then, okay, Bryson's on the scene. How do we get this ball to go faster without giving people a 17-degree 4-iron?
Right.
And a 20-degree 5-iron?
Right.
Well, Tom incorporated that same technology in the longer irons, not in the shorter irons, because I don't need the ball to go faster in the shorter irons.
Right.
I need the ball to go faster in the longer irons. The shorter irons, the ball's already going a little faster because the club's longer.
Right.
So he came out with a set, and they were called the Sterlings, and ball would jump off. I have, since then, he came out with a secondary set, the EQ1 series, and I put together a set of those, and I have my PXGs, and I have those, and I've gone out to the range out at Las Colinas, and I've hit balls at like one of the posts, and I can hit my 7-iron the same distance with either one. I can hit the 6-iron the same distance with either club. The only issue with the single length irons is I have a smaller margin for error to get that ball speed. Because again, it's that place where the sweet spot is, the center of gravity, it's the size of the head of a pin, where the ball will jump off the fastest. I miss it by, an eighth of an inch. The ball still comes off faster, but not quite as fast.
I was just going to ask, how does that compare in the terms of feel, coming off the face? It's obviously got to be different feel. As soon as you go to that club, because it's different face.
It is.
You can feel it.
You can feel it. It feels amazing.
Really?
It's like
Right.
You know, you're looking for flames shooting out the backside of the ball. It's really, really feels solid when you hit it solid. When you just miss it, you know, you just missed it. But when you hit it solid, it's amazing. The distance goes. You know, it makes the ball go. The problem people run into, who is going to use single length irons?
Right.
You know, traditionally, people on tour aren't going to use single length irons.
Right.
For two reasons. Number one, they never did before.
Yeah.
And number two, why do I want to learn now?
Right.
You know, I have my game honed in.
Right.
That's why I am on tour. That's why I get paid to play this game.
Right. But Bryson, on the other hand,
right. he
never
started that in college.
Yeah.
Because he was an engineer.
Yeah.
And he was like, mathematically,
right.
if I could have one swing,
right.
how much easier is that to reproduce?
Right. And his swing wasn't necessarily the most orthodox as well.
Correct.
So he kind of had to stand out in terms of knowing the technological side of golf and kind of took advantage of that. And really, he's still the only one that I know of that on tour uses single length. I don't know if he still uses single length. He does.
As far as I know, he does. Yeah. I can't watch live golf.
Right.
It's like watching somebody playing pinball through a milk glass or something. It's just like there's just too much going on, and I want to watch.
I will say this about Bryson and the controversy surrounding him playing. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Bryson, not just personally, but as far as what he uses in his bag. Everybody's like, oh, he uses the arm lock, this, that, and the other, and, which I will say this, and this is relevant to the episode, but arm lock putter, I don't understand the hate around it. I really don't, because yes, it's you do have that connection, but it makes you a better putter. There's a lot of people on tour that practice with the arm lock putter. For the people at home, there is plenty of tour players that in their practice, you don't see it very often, but they have training putters that they don't use that's their own. They have putters. They don't always do their drills with their putter that they use on the golf course. There's a lot of training putters, and a lot of them are arm locks. And, believe it or not, Bryson used the arm lock, and then all of a sudden you started seeing everybody else kind of hopping on the train and using the arm lock. And everybody's like, oh, they need to ban it. They need to ban it. Well, I just think that's that's smart. He's taking advantage of what is available to him and what is in the legal limits of golf clubs. And he did that with single length irons. And everybody's like, well, the reason why he's hitting it so far, because in the U.S. Open, when he won the U.S. Open, everybody's like, well, he hit his 9-iron 200 yards. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, his lofts are so strong, and his strong lofted. It's like, well, why are you mad at that?
Right. Everybody can do that.
Why are you mad just because it's a different loft and it's stamped as a 9-iron? Why are you mad at that? He's just playing his cards right, and he has the ability to do that. So, with that being said, the single length iron issue and everybody controversial about it. And yes, there is those moments that you're saying about, the lofts issue and the feel, having a different feel and your margin of error is smaller. But now let's talk about the kind of people who should use it. Mm-hmm.
Well, the big thing that I love about single length irons is I do the same thing repeatedly.
Right.
And generally speaking, who are the people who don't do the same thing repeatedly? Beginners.
Right.
Higher handicap golfers. Even mid-handicap golfers will have some challenges.
Right.
And I generally, I see people who have issues with drivers, but that's generally because they're too long. And they're too open.
Right.
Those are the number one and number two challenges.
Right, because people, when they think, going back to the whole loft, changing the loft, the face angle is going to change as well.
You're just changing face angle.
Yep.
That's all you've done. And so you have people, generally speaking, who can benefit the most from it are people who struggle with being repeatable.
Right.
The only issue, and I would run into this, I probably made 25, 30 sets when these first came out. Mm-hmm. And the big question, generally, number one, you have to have enough club head speed to get into the longer irons.
Right.
Now, Washan introduces hybrid starting, I think, at a 6-iron. Because a hybrid, it's easier to get the ball up in the air because the center of gravity is back a little bit.
Right.
You're using a wood shaft, which is a thinner diameter, which bends a little bit more, easier to get the ball up in the air.
Right.
So for people with slower club head speeds, and by slower, I hit my 7-iron when I hit it on the screws 120 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That person, or I can't hit a 7-iron that far.
Right.
No reason to go above a 7-iron head.
I see.
Because you're not going to get the ball high enough into the air.
They don't create enough.
They don't create enough speed with the shorter length. And so they need to create a little bit more speed, and they got to get the ball up in the air.
Right.
So
how do they get that?
And that's going to the hybrid.
Yep.
Because the hybrid, generally speaking, you can build all the hybrids the same length.
Right.
You know, I have a single length hybrid in my bag, and it is the length of what my 4-iron would be.
Oh, okay.
And it's partially because I wanted to build it the length. It's my 5-iron.
Right.
But because of the shallowness of the head, it just looks too far away.
I see.
And so it just feels too short. And when I stood over it as a 5-iron length, and so I played around with it, added a 1/2 inch extension, and it was like, okay, this is comfortable.
Right.
This feels like I'm standing up to a 5-iron length club.
Right.
Mentally. Now I know it's longer, but mentally it felt correct. So the people who struggle with that notion of having enough club head speed, not notion, but the ability to get enough club head speed, need to be concerned about the longer, quote, longer irons, the 4-irons, the 5-irons, the 6-irons. They should be looking at hybrids. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the guy who can move the ball, like yourself, the issue that you have to win yourself over on is I'm standing over the ball. Let's say we have 7-iron length, single length irons.
Yeah.
And you got your 4-iron.
Yeah.
And it's your 7-iron length.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, gotta hit this hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, you gotta swing the same you did with the 8-iron on the last shot.
Right. It's most like my 6-iron. I had the 8-iron shaft, and I always thought I had to kill it.
Right.
I always did. And nothing was changed. I until we put the lead tape on to make it feel like a 6-iron, it just felt like it was just a butter knife, and I had to swing at this. And you remember, I was hitting snap hooks, thin slices. I couldn't hit that, but I would hit my 8-iron perfectly fine.
Yep.
I would hit my 7-iron perfectly fine, 5-iron perfectly fine. But it's a total different feeling when you have those longer irons in a shorter length, because you're mentally trained to think that they're longer clubs.
Right. So I gotta swing.
Exactly. And you're like, oh, well, this takes this much time for the club to get back to the ball, so your timing's off. And timing is a huge thing in golf, especially for field players and even technical players. But it is a weird feeling, and it's something that golfers aren't naturally used to.
Right. And so a lot of times what I would do is I would tell the person, you have plenty of club head speed to hit the 6-iron. You have plenty of speed to hit a 5-iron. You even have plenty of speed to hit a 4-iron. Well, let's stop at the 6-iron first of all. Mm-hmm. And I want you to play, and you decide, okay, can I make that same swing if I had a 5-iron in my hands?
Right.
And 85% of those people would come back and go, yes. And so we would make it the 5, and then I'd say, okay, I want you to play with the 5, because I don't want to make clubs that just sit in your bag.
Right.
Because you can't hit them. Okay. And then, 2 weeks later, make the 4. Okay, got it. But you have to get by that mental hurdle.
Exactly.
That yeah, this is the same length that I just played on that 140-yard par 3.
Right.
And now I'm 200 out. And I got to make the same swing. And the people who can do that benefit greatly.
And as we all know, I never got over that.
Right.
That was something I could never get over. So it really is a hit or miss depending on the person. And this all goes back to personal preference. And that seems like a common thing for a lot of these different bits of technology that benefit people in the game of golf. There's some things that there's different ways of getting there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the 6-iron was something that I could never, ever accept. And I told you, I would never hit it.
Right.
It'd always just be in my bag. Same as the 3-wood, the Bing 3-wood. I had it in there. It was just sitting in there collecting dust. Exactly. And yeah, it all comes down to personal preference and what the person or the golfer likes. And that changes over time.
And their mental state.
Yes.
That's the unpredictable part.
Right.
Because in the shop, there's no pressure.
Right.
Out on the golf course, can I do it?
Yeah, but everything factoring in and your mind's running at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
On the other end of the bag, the issue always was what to do with the wedges.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, since I'm custom making these, for me, my 9-iron being the same length as my 7-iron was too long.
Yeah.
Because I like to choke down sometimes on my 9-iron to begin with. And I like to use it for chipping around the greens. And so then I'm really choking down. Now I got one finger on the steel.
Right.
And so what I did is I said, okay, I am going to step down my 9-iron, a 1/4 inch, my pitching wedge, another 1/4 inch, because at that point I am more concerned about being able to hit numbers and be comfortable in my setup. And then gap wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge, I just said, no, I'm going traditional. I'm going to go with the length that I've always played, because out of the sand, I don't want to have to be trying to figure out how much do I choke down on this shot, on this club. I don't want to have to be thinking about all those other things about this feels a little bit long or not.
And when you're looking down at it too, where the faces look a little bit hooded, you know.
They sometimes did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, depending, you know, so you're sitting there trying to open up the face a little bit.
I feel like it would just look like one of those soup ladles, you know. It's just so close and it's awkward.
Right.
Awkward.
So that end of the bag, I went traditional, and probably, I would say, I think I only built one set where there was a gap wedge and a sand wedge involved. And we did still step those down a little bit. They weren't quite normal length,
right?
But they were a little bit longer. But again, I think if I remember correctly, that was a taller player, and so they could handle the extra length.
Right.
But the biggest thing about them is they're all MOI'd. So if I'm swinging one, and I could even do that when I changed the length. I could make the head a little tiny bit heavier, and that kept the MOI the same, even though the lengths were a little tiny bit different.
Right.
The other, the big advantage is what I found for most people were in the hybrids and fairway woods. Now, you can't make them too short. You don't go and make a 37-inch 3-wood.
Right.
You're going to lose way too much distance. But I would make, like your 3-wood, my 3-wood, 42 inches.
Right.
How often do you miss hit that?
Not very often.
Not very often, because it's an easy length to hit.
Yes, and with my other club, it was always, you know, I would top it. I'd make the same exact swing as everything else. I could be hitting it as good as I can that day. Step up to a par 5, and a little bit of it had to do with mental, you know, oh, I got to hit this green in 2. I want to hit this green in 2. And then, you know, there's a mental side of it. Right. But no matter what, even if I was stressed out about the shot or not, and I was hitting it well, I would top it, or I would thin it, or it would go 100 yards in front of me. It's like, that's not what it should do. But with the shorter length 3-wood, you know, like you said, I don't really ever not hit it on the face.
Right.
I don't ever top it. I don't ever thin it. I never have misses like that. sure, I can hit it 30 yards right. I can hit it, 20 yards left. Has that happened? Maybe once or twice. That's really it. But yeah, I mean, the lengths and, like you said, having the woods and all the same lengths, that just sounds appealing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the shorter the club is, but like you said, not too short, because then where are you going to make all that
club
weight
head speed up?
Yeah,
and the weight.
And the weight and the club head speed. And it's very hard to put, like you said, that many grams of weight, especially on a wood, and if you put it on the shaft.
Especially if it's a OEM wood.
Yes.
Like on the Wishan,
there's weight bores.
Right,
yeah.
27 grams. I can weight that.
Do that with a hot melt and put that in there. But as far as the general public and people who don't have that resource available to them, or I should say that somebody to apply that, and it's I don't know. I really find interest in it because it's something that anybody can do. Really, anybody can do.
Yep.
And I'm not special by any means, and I'm taking custom ability to the max and utilizing, obviously what your knowledge is and what I'm learning from it and applying it to the club. And, the fairway wood, that fairway wood is one of the best fairway woods I've had. And I told you how much I'm very fond of the old TaylorMade burners, very fond of them. And actually, I was talking to my buddy the other night. I still have the heads.
Oh yeah,
and I can still
we can still drill it out and
still definitely put a shaft. And I've been very tempted to do that. But yeah, it's just a matter of preference. And if anybody wants to try that, or even go down to their local golf shop and say, hey, I want to try this length. There's nothing wrong with trying things.
Right.
There's nothing. I think everybody gets so afraid of change, and that's just who we are as that's the human nature. Yep. But especially in golf, we're creatures of habit. And I think stepping out of our comfort zone every once in a while and testing something like that is...
Well, and the big thing is how come they don't make them that way?
Exactly.
There must be something wrong.
Well, that's something that's what I thought.
And, again, when I was playing in 1975, playing in college, my 3-wood was 42 inches.
Right.
And I recently made myself a 7-wood, and it's 41.5 inches long compared to my 42-inch 3-wood.
Right.
And because I was like, I don't need a 5-wood, but I'd like to get it a little closer to a 5-wood length as far as distance.
Right.
Make it a little bit longer. And I have that freedom because now, again, I'm starting from a lower number.
Right.
Just to give people at home, I did some numbers. The one major company that produces single length irons, their length is 37.25 inches. So in between a 7-iron and a 6-iron.
Okay.
How many beginner golfers do you think struggle with 6-irons like this? A lot. So it starts off with, that's an interesting number to start with.
Right. With
the swing weight of D1, if you're in steel, D0 if you're in graphite. That's pretty head light.
Yeah, that is for,
So 21.5 degree 5-iron.
Really?
24 degree 6-iron. 26.5 degree 7-iron. That's stronger than, I think my 5-iron is 26 degrees. 31 degree 8-iron. And then they jump to a 36 degree 9-iron. The Wishan ones that we were talking about, the EQs, 24 degree 5-iron, 28, 32, 36, 40 for a 9-iron, 45 for a pitching.
You see, but some people nowadays would say, well, that's weak lofted.
Right. But again, if I can't, it's getting the ball up in the air.
Yes.
I got to get the ball up in the air. I had a gentleman that I made those beryllium copper irons.
Yes.
And he is like in love with them. His 8-iron, well, his 5-iron is the loft of his current in between his 8-iron and 9-iron.
Okay. Right.
And his first question was, how come I'm hitting him shorter? I said, well, because your 5-iron is the same loft as your 8-iron or almost your 9-iron. It's almost halfway in between them. I think it's 1 degree closer to his 8-iron. And, well, he had stopped by today to pick up some other clubs, and he was like, oh, I love hitting those. The ball goes up in the air, and it comes down to the ground, and it stops, and I know how far it's going to go the next time. He goes, he had his other set, he goes, I would stand there, and let's say I'll pick a club for him. I don't know what club it was, but let's say he was hitting his 9-iron at 150. Well, it could also go 130, and it could go 165. And he had a lot of confidence going into that shot.
I could relate to that.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
And now he just goes, I have 12 yards in between each club.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy how much the dispersion changes, and when you're fit properly and you have everything,
you have more spin on the ball, so the ball doesn't curve as much.
Yep, exactly. Your point of contact, and fun fact, the more consistently you hit the center of the club face, the more consistent results you're going to get. Unless the club's lofts and lies are completely out of whack.
Right.
But that's a completely different beast. But just generally, it, like when we weighted the irons, I told you, and you mentioned, well, my 9-iron one day can go this far, and then the next day it can go that far under the same conditions.
Right.
Whether, one day is windier than the other, I'm saying same conditions, same place. Let's say I had 2 golf balls, 4 golf balls, whatever. One would go this way, one would go this way, one would go this way. I had that issue all the time, and I would always attribute it to my swing, which I'm not saying that that's not a factor in a lot of golfers, but I was looking at videos, and I was like, I was golfing. I actually looked at a video of my swing from a year ago, and it was actually, my swing looked very solid. But I remember I played my worst golf with that swing. And even right now, my swing is not necessarily the most picture perfect. I'm still working on it. There's no such thing as perfect, but I'm playing better golf now than I was when I thought I was swinging the best I ever have.
Right.
So when you take that into account, it really boils down to what are you playing with, and what are the specs, and how can we fine tune them to be as I say perfect, but I guess technically sound as possible.
I shared this story with Doug about the need for fitting. I was a bowler. I grew up in Detroit. I had a bowling alley in my basement when I was 4 years old. My dad made one, had a ball return and everything, because I was the only 4-year-old who could keep score manually. And I would go to league night with him and my mom bowled in a league, and I would sit back there as a 8-year-old and walk up and whisper to my dad, Dad, they made a mistake in the scoring. And my dad would look. My 8-year-old just saw that you can't add. And so I was into bowling. Well, my dad passed away a few years ago, and the one thing that we shared a lot, because he had rheumatoid arthritis the latter part of his life, so golfing he couldn't do it after probably probably around 2000. He just couldn't do it, maybe even earlier. But he could still bowl sometimes because it didn't use the same shoulders and arms, and that hitting the ground, that was the killer for him. Yeah. And so I took his bowling ball, and I went to a friend who was a professional as far as drilling out balls, worked with professional bowlers. Right. Told him what I wanted, showed him another ball that I had. I said, I want it to be like this ball. That was in 2017, 16, somewhere around there. I have never taken it out of the bag. 2 months ago, a friend of mine was having a birthday, and I don't know why, but they decided to have a birthday party bowling. Right. So I brought my ball. Now it's drilled for me.
Right.
My specs. I have never thrown this ball before. I've never bowled with it, period. Have not bowled in 6 years. First game I bowled a 220. Second game I bowled a 195.
Right.
Because I had a couple of splits. But the point is it's fit for me.
Yeah.
And I knew what to do, how to do it, the way I've always done it, even though I haven't done it in years. I could repeat that enough to be able to make it work. And that's what golf clubs need to be.
Yeah.
I need to be able to feel what I need to feel, whatever that is. Pull it back, swing it through, and handsy like you, big muscle turner like me, doesn't matter which one it is, need to feel what you need to feel.
Yeah. In relation to your mechanics and what your swing is like, and even going back to what I said in a prior episode was, I would take, a week off of golf, work, in the shop one day, go out and play golf and shoot, I shoot 68 with Ross, or I'll shoot, I told you I shot a 67, I shoot, and it was, I didn't practice. I know that sounds bad, but I didn't practice. I didn't do anything special. Really, this summer was one of the summers where I really didn't practice or play as much as I should have. But I did take the time to learn more about my clubs and fine-tuning them, and that made all the difference. Mm-hmm. It's not like my swing changed anyway, where, as soon as as soon as we fit it for me, I would go out there and I would say, oh, okay, it's this much, it's this club. And then I go, and naturally the club would do what it's wanting to do because there's more weight. My personal preference is I like it heavier in the head. Yep. And we talked about this last week. We changed the shafts and the irons, and the amount of weight is still the same swing weight, but the weight ratio from the shaft and the club head were different from when we initially weighted them, because I had the, ascending weight technology, and they were, whatever, 80 gram weight. They're all different weights. They're all different. But it's just amazing. You're exactly right. That's exactly how golf should be. And I tell everybody, and I really, I'm a big advocate for it. Get fit to the best of your ability and understand yourself. Don't just go to somebody and be, listen to them, and that's all that there is. Because I've been guilty of that. And when we first started talking about club fitting, I told you, and I would kind of look at him, and in the back of my head, I'm like, he knows what he's talking about, but I've been told otherwise from all the other big shot guys. Got a TaylorMade guy, a Ping guy. Well, sorry, but they're getting paid to do that.
Right. And they will do what they do, and that's all that they will do, unless you're a tour pro.
Sure.
And that's perfect for you.
Yeah.
Because that's all we'll do. Uh-huh. And there's more to it. Uh-huh. You don't go into a shoe store and say, give me the one that's on sale.
Yeah. Without trying it on.
Right.
Yeah.
And without giving them a size.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't go in and go,
these look cool.
Yeah. I want the coolest shoes because I'll run fast.
I want those gold clubs, those I'm not going to say the brand. I want those gold-plated clubs because they're gold and they're cool.
Right. The ball will go farther because it knows.
Yeah. The fun fact, those gold clubs aren't very good.
No. But the big thing that people need to understand about single-length clubs, they can be beneficial.
Yes.
Generally speaking, mid-handicappers, high-handicappers, definitely beginner golfers, definitely would benefit from single-length clubs. Your better player, it's kind of, you have to really be dedicated that I can swing a shorter club and have confidence in it that it's going to go the distance it's going to go.
Mentally change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest part of single leg clubs. Shorter woods, shorter hybrids are a great thing.
Yeah.
There are many people out on the golf course who have hybrids longer than my 3-wood.
Oh, yeah.
And I just look at and they struggle with them and they don't know why.
Yeah.
Well,
And then they're on the range
Right.
and they're like, whoa, what if I got in this position? No,
what if I brought a step stool out?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't work because it's really hard to get that to stay in the basket in the golf cart.
Yeah, it is. And carrying that around just isn't
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah. So, that's kind of our story. I didn't share with Josh. I reconnected with Adam Porzak.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
Adam has some great videos. You've seen some of his videos.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Adam and I were talking, and we're going to try to get together
Nice.
to do something together. So don't know when that will be, but if you are looking for some help with the swing, Adam has some great videos, and I would encourage you to watch them, get an idea of what he has a very simple approach to the game, and he's good at explaining, and so easy to just kind of listen to. One thing I always caution golfers when they would come into the shop, I was watching the Golf Channel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my first question always was your name used?
Yeah.
Because it's always, every single time was, I need more lag.
Oh, my goodness.
And I go, no, you don't.
I know.
That's not what you're...
And they don't really know they don't have no clue what it means.
Right, but they need more of it.
Yes.
In fact, I once had this is a funny story before we go. I had somebody come into the shop one day, and he's looking at the walls. And I'm like, can I help you? And there were golf balls on the wall, there were gloves, there were, lead tape dispensers and stuff like that. And he goes, friend of mine said I needed some D1. D1. Yeah, he said I needed some D1 for my clubs. Was he talking about swing weight? He said something about swing. Oh, okay. Well, D1 isn't something you buy. And I held it together. I didn't laugh.
Yeah.
I didn't laugh hard when he left.
Yeah.
Until he was far enough away.
Sure.
But he needed some D1. That was almost as good as the guy who came in looking for ball markers on the wall one day. And he comes up to the cash register and goes, do you have any ball markers? And I hit the little thing to open up the register. And I go, well, we got these big ones for $25.
Yeah.
We have these really little ones for $10. And we have these in-between size for $5.
Yeah.
And he's just said, you can use coins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So golfers are interesting.
Yep.
So I'll let you close this out.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of season 20.
Two of us.
The 20th episode, and we're both here for it. This was amazing. I had a lot of fun. And you know what? We might do more of these in the future just because, a little bit more interaction in person. We can actually, talk more behind the scenes and just kind of get more understanding of what to talk about and as far as what content we're going to lay out for the viewers and listeners. It's a lot easier, but
and it's fun for us to get to see each other because we usually don't see each other.
We don't see each other very often, yeah. But looking forward with Adam Porzak, and that's something that our audience should look forward to.
Yeah, he's suffering right now. He's up at Cypress Point.
Yep.
They played Pebble Beach, and he played. Where else was he? I forgot what other course that I didn't get invited to.
Of course. So. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and hopefully you learned something. I learned a lot today, and hopefully you did too. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
God bless.